Okay, hi guys and welcome back. Okay, so the other day I was checking through my comments and just trying to catch up on them. I do try to answer all the comments you leave, and if I've missed you out I do apologise. When a comment by a gentleman called James Charman, I hope I pronounced that right, James, caught my eye. And what I will do, I'll read out James's comment to you now. So James says, watch my video using the link below to find out how much my Porsche 986 Boxster has cost me in the last year. The answer will shock you. So, well, I watched James' video and I was indeed shocked. I was shocked so much that I actually contacted James and asked him if he would mind if I used his video to do a reaction video. And James said yes. I'm going to put a link below to the video that James linked me to, and I will also put it at the end of this video with a couple of other of James's videos for you to watch. He's got a terrific channel started up there and really needs some support, so go and watch it, guys. He's a car fanatic. It's going to be a great channel, so go watch it. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get on with watching James's video and see what we think. Okay, great intro, I love it. Fantastic camera work. I wish I was that good. James, if you want to share your tips, let me know.
Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. What we're going to be doing today is getting into the sort of nitty-gritty details surrounding my Porsche 986 Boxster's running and repair costs in the last year. So it's a 2001 car, 2.7 litre engine, and I've had the car since last May. It's now August. But I really didn't start putting any miles on the car until about this time last year. So I bought the car with 26,000 miles. It was supposed to be a pristine example, and I've actually had some really high costs in the last year. I think it might shock you how much. I'm up to 40,000 miles on the car, so 14,000 miles in the last year, and we're going to go into the details surrounding what those 14,000 miles have cost me. And I've got the calculator, and I've got my folder. I'm sure as car guys you all have a folder containing your invoices, sort of receipts and paperwork surrounding servicing of the car, repair costs, maintenance, etc, etc. So we're going to be going through that in detail here today, hopefully with an aim to come out with sort of an end cost of how much it has cost me in the last year to run the car. Hopefully this will give you some advice surrounding 986 Boxsters, or perhaps tell you not to, who knows. So let's get into that.
Okay James, so let me get this right. You've got 2001 18-year-old car with 26,000 miles on it, and you've put 14,000 miles on it in the last year. Okay, so and it's supposed to be in pristine condition. Okay, first thing we're going to look at is buying a car like this, a classic prestige car. Now, I'm going to use warranties here as an example that you need to keep in mind when you're buying a classic car. When you buy a car or you have work done on it, you get a warranty usually, and warranties are always measured in time and usage, i.e. 36,000 miles or 3 years. And the reason that they do that is because time span has as much of an effect on a car as the mileage. So although you've seen this 26,000 miles, it is still an 18-year-old car. So a lot of the components on that car are well past their shelf life. So they're going to be problematic simply because of their age and possibly because of their lack of use. So that's the thing to bear in mind there.
So here we go, guys. Let's get into it. I've just added up all the costs. As I sort of read them out and talk you through them, I'm going to chuck a value up on the screen, and at the end we will do a full breakdown sort of calculation of the total amount that it has cost me throughout the year. So the first thing I did when I got the car, sort of 2 months in, I booked it in for its minor service. So I had a Porsche main dealer service. I took it to my local Porsche Bournemouth. I've got the car. First thing I'm going to do is chuck it in with Porsche, find out what's wrong with it, what needs sorting. I didn't have an independent inspection. It was through a dealer, but that was my choice. And it needed a wheel balance and a brake fluid change as well on that. So total value for that was £547.49.
So yeah, we all like the peace of mind of putting the car in for a service as soon as we buy one. There's nothing wrong with that at all. If you've got service history for the car and you had a report done on the car when you bought it, you would know if it's due a service. So wheel balancing and brake fluid change, pretty basic, pretty routine things to do. Anyone could have done those for you, no big issue there. Main dealer. Right, let's talk main dealers here. Now, main dealers are geared up for new cars and selling new cars. Okay, so their service department, 90% of what they do will be servicing and warranty work. Once the car reaches the second-hand market or it runs out of its warranty, you will generally find that it then goes to specialists, trusted local garages, or self-maintenance. Not any longer really the main dealers because of their costs and because they're not geared up to deal with older cars.
The next cost I had, which actually came out really low, surprisingly considered what it is, was my wheel bearing. So I actually had a sort of squeaking noise. I'm going to overlay that now. And this noise was coming from my wheel. No one could figure out what it was. I took it to Porsche. They gave me again a courtesy car, a 718 Cayman this time, and they literally couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. It was in for hours of work, and they told me they'd fixed it. In fact, they made me pay at one point some money, telling me they'd fixed it. Drove it down the road. 5 minutes later, I heard it happen again. I took it right back, and it was actually in with them for 2 weeks. So I had a courtesy car for 2 weeks. And they were trying to fix the car. They couldn't come to sort of the solution of what happened. And they said, like, right, look, we've spent so many hours on this car, we're not going to charge you, but we can't figure out what it is, we can't do it. And so I actually took it to my specialist. Now, they took I'm not sure on the right word, but I think it's a stethoscope. They took it to the wheel or something like that. They listened, and below me it was the wheel bearing. So they replaced that, including labour and parts, for £208. You can chuck that on the list.
Right, yeah, that your specialist doesn't sound an unreasonable price for wheel bearing. Would be interested to know what the labour costs were and what the wheel bearing cost you. I generally try to find garages or mechanics that are happy to use your parts, because generally you can source parts for a lot better price, and most of the mechanics I recommend are around £25 an hour labour. But yeah, you've just kind of showed the point that I made earlier. Specialists are more geared up to understanding problems with older cars. Actually finding the problem is often more time consuming than fixing the problem.
Now, another issue I had when it went in for the service with Porsche was that they noticed that a Jubilee clip, actually this came out when it went in for its wheel bearing. They did a health check and they noticed that the Jubilee clip that Porsche put on the power steering hose was breaking. It essentially had come off, and that the hose was just holding itself in. Now, I understand this is quite a popular Porsche problem on Porsches, and I had this issue. Now, Porsche quoted me quite a lot of money to fix this, actually. If I just bring up the invoice at the back, they quoted me, including parts and labour, £1,498 to replace this. Now, Porsche have to do things the right way, obviously, and that meant replacing the whole pipe, because you can't get the clip on its own, and they wanted to replace the whole thing. Now, that was ridiculous. For this little crack pipe, I wasn't paying 1,500 quid, it was ridiculous. So the £1,498 isn't going on the list. What I did is I took it to my specialist, Brookspeed in Eastleigh, again, who are absolutely great. They've sorted me out time and time again, especially on the money side. Thank you, Brookspeed. With a power steering hose clip, essentially a Jubilee clip they just put on top of the old one. Absolutely sorted the problem for £153. So that's a tenth, essentially, of what Porsche quoted me to fix the problem.
What to bear in mind here is we're talking about a different range of services. We're talking about main dealers, we're talking about specialists, and now I'm going to introduce another term, engineers. Now, what you need to bear in mind is most garages that work on cars will only change parts. Okay, this is why in the old days they were called fitters, because they fitted new parts. They didn't repair the parts, and they didn't especially make parts, which is what you find starts to happen in the realms of classic car maintenance. And what you need to do when it comes to things like powered steering hoses and other specialist services, you need to start to search out engineering places that deal with these services. There's a lot of hydraulic specialists out there. They can repair powered steering lines, and they can put on replacement clips very professionally onto powered steering lines. So it's not a case of do the job properly. It's a case of main dealers will just replace the part, whereas specialist engineering firm will repair the part or make a replacement part, and that will be far more professional than replacing the part, because the part was designed 18 years ago, and what the hydraulic company will do is they will give you modern technology, modern materials built into that repair. So I hope that kind of makes sense.
So moving on from that, we're going to chuck that on the list, to the big numbers. Now this is where it gets really expensive, guys. Everyone knows about the IMS issue with Porsches around that time. If you don't, my very brief understanding is that it is a bearing in the engine that if it comes off, if it comes loose, while you're going along, causes a lot of damage. Now this has damaged the 2.7 Boxster, the equivalent 996 at the time, and I understand quite a lot of the cars since. I'm not going to go into the details on that because I'm actually not too sure, but it was a really big issue, and I was told by Porsche, look, your car should be fine. If it was going to break, it would have broken by now, right? So I'm fine, I'm thinking that's great, whatever. Actually, the reality was that being a low mileage car, it hadn't had the opportunity to break. Porsche told me they don't really see this issue anymore, but because my car was such low mileage, it was yet to have a chance for this to go wrong.
The good old IMS bearing was indeed, it's blown out of proportion thanks to the internet. It was only a certain year of car that was the problem. I think it was late 97 to around 2002, but don't quote me on that. It was a long time ago that I researched into this. Also, the bearings were supplied by a number of different companies to Porsche, and it was only about 10% of the cars produced in those years that had a problem. Of that 10% of cars that had a problem, 80% of the cars were repaired, or the bearing was changed under recall warranty. So in realistic terms, it was a very small number of 986s that were produced that had a problem. Thanks to the internet, huge numbers of cars have had the IMS bearing replaced because owners are worried. And I've come across examples of where cars have had the bearing replaced 4 or 5 times by consecutive owners because they were not sure if the bearing had been replaced in the past. But your car, unfortunately, James, because it's slap bang in the middle of the year of the cars that had a problem, and because your car is so low mileage, it could be an issue for you.
I was driving to Southampton, my nearest city, and my clutch, my car essentially kept stalling when I was pulling away from traffic lights. I was really struggling. I knew something was up. It wasn't like the car like that. I knew it wasn't a driver error. That was my first thought. I was like, what am I doing? That wasn't the issue. Essentially, the clutch went. I got stuck at some traffic lights. The clutch wouldn't work, and the clutch had broken in two. Now, I've got that somewhere. I'm not going to bring it down. It's up in storage. My old clutch, Porsche. My specialist Brooks, he'd actually told me they'd never seen a clutch that bad before, and I've been driving it for like 3-4 months at that point, so that might have been me, might be the previous owner, who knows.
We've mentioned about time and usage has an effect. Okay, so your clutch is well past its shelf life date. Because the car's only got 26,000 miles on it, it has not done any real work, as you mentioned with the IMS bearing. What you're facing now, James, is you're going through essentially like a running in period. You said you put 14,000 miles on the car in the last year. That's half the mileage the car has actually done in its life. But you're probably going to find over the next year or so that you're going to get these issues of things creating problems. That's probably the reason behind your clutch. That's probably the reason behind your wheel bearing.
Essentially, my clutch broke at a set of traffic lights. I had to have it recovered to Brook Speed in Eastleigh. And when they put the car up for inspection, not only the clutch had broke, but the flywheel as well. The flywheel needed replacing, and my limited mechanical knowledge would still lead me to assume that it was all interrelated. The clutch broke, it broke the flywheel, whatever, big cost. Your
clutch has broken, your flywheel has broken. It's an opportunity. With classic cars, old cars, you've got to think preventive maintenance. You've got to think being ahead of the game all the time. So while the car is in having the clutch and the flywheel replaced, take the opportunity, ask them to change the IMS bearing for you at the same time.
But while it was in, sort of a bit of a miracle happened. They noticed the IMS bearing, so the clutch and flywheel and all that was being replaced. I guess that meant they could get in amongst the car, and they actually noticed that the IMS bearing was coming loose. So it wasn't going along, and the big issue is when it comes off going along, I think it damages the engine. But they actually said, right, it's expensive, but we can cover this, we can get it fixed for you for a fraction of what it would have cost to have had the engine rebuilt should it have come off. So it was a blessing in disguise. It was expensive, but it saved me, wait for it, a £9,000 engine rebuild on the 986 Boxster.
Okay guys, we're going to take a break now. In part 2 we'll find out just how much it costs for James to replace the clutch, flywheel and IMS bearing, the total cost of running his car for the year, and just how much James paid for the car. So please come and join us in part 2, and as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you in part 2.